Hiya crafty folks, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and today's video is all about my sentiment binder system and how I fill it up. So I'm just going to show you the binder that I'm talking about here today. Many of you have asked how I decide what to cut, what to put in here, and that's what this video is all going to be about today. There's not a really concise system. I don't have an inventory or anything like that, but I will teach you kind of my thought process as I fill this up. Now to start, I have two different sorts of baseball card pocket sheets. This first one here is the first one I started using, and then the second one to the left actually has like a little bit of a lip that helps kind of keep them in. Now I will say there's benefits to both. So this particular one I like because if I have a little bit of a longer sentiment or a big one, I can kind of pull it away and kind of create a bigger pocket. I just don't want to fill those too full because then they'll be more likely to kind of slip out if I tip my binder. Now this has a little 1/4 inch lip over the top that really helps kind of hold it in, which I use these a lot, especially with my critter stamps, so in my other binder. But I do have a couple sheets of this, I believe, in my sentiment binder as well. Now here's a little bucket of white and watercolor cardstock scraps. I have this white folder here full of black and gray scraps, and then I have this purple folder full of pattern paper cardstock. So this is one of the first questions I guess I get asked. How do I know which papers to cut out? So most of the time I'm going to stick with neutrals like black and white, or gold and holographic and silver like you're seeing here. Those are timeless. They go with almost everything I create, but I do also like to cut with pattern paper. So there I was showing you some of the items that I'm going to use. Basically the pattern paper, I will say that's one that may sit in my binder for 6 months before the right card comes along. A lot of times, you know, I won't have a card that matches it perfectly. I don't mind if I don't use it right away. That's kind of, you know, the benefit of having a binder system like this. It really just kind of holds a lot of things and I'll find the right use for it at some point. So don't overthink it. It's a really good way to use some pattern paper scraps. If you have them, just kind of die cut them out and set them in this storage system, and then eventually you'll get to them. You don't have to have a plan in mind for every single thing. That's kind of the benefit. But like I said, for the most part, I do stick with neutrals, the blacks, the whites, like a white shadow layer with a black die cut or vice versa. Now, what I'm doing here, I kind of have this sped up because I didn't want the video to be too long. But what I did here is I actually took a full half sheet of cardstock for this particular product to start. And I'm finagling these all so they fit in there, and I'm going to use my Post-it tape to tape the whole thing together. Now this is a really cool stamp and die set that I recently got, and basically they're kind of thin, but the shadow layer is what you're going to cut out with the die, and then you stamp the sentiment inside of it. So it's kind of not a huge chunky die cut. It's a little bit thin and scripty font. So it's different than a lot of stuff I have. But here what you can see I'm doing, I'm trying to save time, and I want to keep all of those dies taped together because then I can just move this whole shebang to another half sheet of cardstock and do more die cutting. So this is one way that I do it. So I kind of commit, you know, a section of time. Maybe I'm not feeling particularly creative, but I want to be in my craft room and I want to play with my new goodies. I'll just, you know, dedicate some time to die cutting. I don't feel the need to create. In this video, I'm not going to create any cards. This is all just about kind of filling up the binder. Now, all of those dies that I showed you in the beginning, and including the stamp set and die set, stamp and die set, are new to me, meaning I have them in my stash and I haven't used them yet. That's another answer to a question. I don't have an inventory of my existent dies that I have in the binder. If I notice something is getting low, then I might, you know, pull that die out again. But honestly, what I often do is just make a conscious effort to cut a bunch of them when I get a new die. So all of those were new to me dies. And if they're still available, I will link them in the video description box below. But when I get a new die, I'll just commit to cutting them a handful of times or a few times just to put in the binder. So that's key number one right there. When you get new stuff, always cut extra to put into this binder. Even if you're starting, you know, to create a card or whatever, cut extra, put it in the binder. It's like kind of storing money away in the bank or saving it for later. So basically here, I know it's going to fit my neutral mindset, right? Because it's white cardstock and I'm going to stamp with black. Now this was a bit of a litany of errors when I was doing this. As you can see, I die cut a bunch of them out and I kept the frame for piecing them back in so I can just keep repeat stamping. You've probably seen Jennifer McGuire do this. It's a way to save time. Now what I didn't realize is that I should have used my little sticky mat from scrapbook.com in the first place, just to kind of help hold everything down. It'll help hold these little die cuts in place, and it will help, you know, keep the little bits from popping up on the frame as well. So basically I'm just going to piece these back in and then condition the stamp with my hand and then stamp it with black pigment ink multiple times. So then I'm going to have like 3 of each of this gorgeous new set just to kind of build into my new binder. Now, be mindful when you're kind of cramming them all in. I was a little nervous that since I did the die cutting first and then the stamping, I was a little nervous that the stamps might not kind of all fit next to each other because I had the dies crammed so close. So one way around that could be lay all your stamps out and stamp those first and then line up your dies over it and then just keep all your dies taped together. And then you can be sure you had enough room. Now, this ended up working out okay, but I was a little nervous because I thought the stamps might kind of get in the way of the other stamps, if that makes sense. But it ended up working out okay. And this is definitely a great way to save time and kind of get a bunch of these ready to go. So just do a bunch of die cut, or honestly, you could even leave them white and then just stack them up. So let's say you only wanted to stamp them once, but you wanted to give them some dimension. Then I could use those other 2 white ones that I stamped or that I die cut out, and I could just stack them up, and then I could have built-in dimension. So that's another option for you. Now here I have these other ones, and I have one of the white scraps. So I'm just kind of putting as much as I can on one sheet. I don't worry about different sizes or like depths of the dies or anything like that. I just fit as much as I can to create as few passes as possible on my die cutting machine. Now check this out. I don't know what I was thinking, but this, I haven't used these dies yet. So as you can see here, it cuts into the sheet. It doesn't cut it out without using that outer die. So really cool feature. I love when dies do this, but for some reason, I wasn't thinking that it was only going to cut into the cardstock and not cut it out as a solid piece. So here, another error. I had to kind of fiddle and get it lined back up perfectly. And then I'm going to tape these 2 dies together with my mint tape and kind of just keep them that way. So that way I can just cut out like a free form sentiment. Now I do love that I can remove that frame and just cut into a card front if I wanted. There's a lot of design possibilities with this. It's really super cool. I love when they do that. Plus I'm already thinking shakers. So it's always cool when they give you that flexibility of a separate kind of die around the outside to cut it out. So it was a mistake here to start, but I'm also glad that the dies are configured like that. So basically I'm just attaching that outside die right along the edge of those 2, and then I'll be able to cut them out into like freestanding dies. So here I'm cutting out the Hey You, and I know that the one that I cut out in white I'll probably put on like a black die cut shadow layer, just because those are so easy to use with my style of card making. Pretty much any background I make will look great with a black and white sentiment. So here I'm just lining this back up, again using that mint tape to kind of hold the 2 together, but it's a nice, you know, semi-permanent solution, and then when I want it separated I can just remove that mint tape. But I will actually leave the mint tape on in the packaging so that when I go to use it the next time I can just cut out like a free-form sentiment for a future card. So here I've kind of got everything done. I didn't want to bore you with doing it all on screen. There's my pattern paper. Like I said, those might take a while. They might sit and collect a little bit of dust in my binder system, but I'm okay with that because I got to use up some pattern paper scraps. And when the right card does come along, it'll be great. So here you can see I'm actually ripping these 2 openings here to create a bigger pocket. So there's all sorts of different solutions. You could get those little, I even have one and I can't think of the name of it, those little tools that you can kind of melt the plastic and create your own pockets, or you can get maybe different size pockets. I'm sure they exist. I think I've seen other people mention them, but for me, I just kind of tear the little the little pocket and make it one bigger pocket, and that seems to work great. So here I'm just kind of keeping the hoorays together. I have some in different golds, more of a matte gold, more of a shiny gold, and white. I should probably cut some of the hooray out in black as well. I was going to do that. But these I attached to the base layer, the Hey You, just so they weren't kind of fiddly. Here I wanted to open it again, so I had room for this thank you one because these are pretty big and they'll make kind of a nice focal point on a card. And then the Hey You, I'm just going to kind of nestle in here. Now these ones without the lip, like I said, don't fill them too full because, well, any of them, if you dump them upside down, it's all going to fall out on you. But if you pack them too full, then they can really be kind of fussy. I just tend to just be mindful and try not to whip it around, and it's worked great for me. I've done this for quite a while now. Now here, I don't want my little tittles to run away, so I'm using my jewel picker and I'm just kind of sticking it on a piece of mint tape, and I'm just going to stick that in the pocket for the Miss You sentiment. And these, I wasn't sure if they were going to fit because they're kind of big, but surprisingly they did. Or this one I did have to kind of tear it again just to open and make a big enough spot. But all the other ones I'm pretty sure just kind of fit in and kind of added to my stash. So I have been staring at this beautiful stamp and die set for a while. I just have not had the time to play with it yet. So I'm really excited to have these gorgeous scripty die cut sentiments for future cards because I just don't have anything like this. That's kind of with a slim die that cuts it out with the stamping. So really super exciting. Now I'm just going to put this in here in my ever getting fuller sentiment binder and close it up. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful. I know a lot of you think there's more of a science to it, but there's really not. I don't have an inventory. I just kind of take note if there's one that I ran out of that I need to, supplement or replenish, I do. But really, I just stick to the neutrals. I don't overthink it. Or I stick to colors that I know I'm going to use, like teals, purples, pinks. So don't overthink it. Just build yourself a binder and do some batching. Be a Batchin Betty. So thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye.